Hello and welcome to ActivTrades Weekly Outlook. It's a big week ahead for economic news that will be of interest to investors and traders. We're past the halfway mark on earnings season, but there are still some interesting companies to watch. Walmart and Home Depot are some of the retailers that will be worth keeping track of this week. Let's dive in. The Japanese economy expanded by 2.7% in the first quarter on an annualized basis, and this followed an upwardly revised 0.4% expansion in the previous quarter. The upturn was backed by a rise in private consumption once all pandemic precautions were lifted. Economists expect growth to continue at a rate of around 3.2% when the preliminary data is to be published on Monday. Quarter-over-quarter growth of around 0.8% is also forecast. Minutes from the Reserve Bank of Australia's latest monetary policy meeting will be published on Tuesday. The RBA defied market expectations again and maintained its cash rate at 4.1% at its last meeting earlier this month, prolonging the rate pause for a second month running. Despite pointing out that the country's cost pressure are cooling, the central bank acknowledged that inflation at 6% was still far too high and more may need to be done to reach the 2-3% target rate. China's industrial production increased by 4.4% in June year-over-year, above analyst expectations after a 3.5% increase in May. When the most recent findings are to be released on Tuesday, further growth is tipped of around 4.7% for July. Again from China, and with sales slowing in a number of major sectors, retail sales growth in June fell drastically to 3.1% year-on-year, the weakest performance since last December. A slight rebound 3.6% is forecast for July. Also on Tuesday, a range of employment data is due to be made available from the UK. Germany's economic sentiment index, the ZEW, will have its new report. Canada's latest inflation data is due to be reported, and the US will report its retail sales figures for July. Major earnings report include Home Depot. The Reserve Bank of New Zealand is due to meet on monetary policy on Wednesday, with the decision to be published and a press conference afterwards. As was widely anticipated, the RBNZ kept the official cash rate unchanged at 5.5% in July. Since October 2021, the central bank has increased borrowing rates by 525 basis points and sent the economy into a technical recession this year. This week, expectations are for rates to again be on hold. UK CPI figures are due on Wednesday. The index fell to 7.9% in June, the lowest level since March 2022, mostly owing to falling fuel costs. In addition, the core rate, which does not include food and energy prices, increased to 6.9% from a three-decade high of 7.1% in May. A fall to around 7.4% is expected for the main rate for July, while the core rate may fall to 6.8% year-over-year. After reaching a 7-month high of 1.496 million in May, building permits in the US fell 3.7% to a seasonally adjusted annual pace of 1.441 million in June. According to updated stats, a rebound of 1.46 million is forecast for July when the results are published on Wednesday. The Federal Reserve is to publish the most recent FOMC monetary policy meeting minutes on Wednesday. Following a brief break in June, the Fed continued its tightening campaign, noting that the economy has been growing at a modest pace. In July, the board increased the target range for the federal funds rate by 25 basis points to 5.25-5.5% in line with market expectations. Many investors will look to these minutes for signs of what will take place at the next meeting in September. In contrast to market expectations, Japan's trade balance unexpectedly switched to a surplus of 43 billion yen in June from May's deficit of 1,375 billion year-over-year. This marked the first surplus for almost 2 years. The updated number is due to be published on Wednesday. Major earnings reports are to include Tencent, Hong Kong Exchanges and Clearing, Cisco Systems, and Target. Australia will release its employment figures for July for Thursday. The labour market has remained strong despite efforts from the RBA to cool the economy. The seasonally adjusted unemployment rate remained at 3.5% in June and is expected to also remain steady for July. Employment also rose by 32,600 to 14.05 million in June, above market predictions, while around 25,100 more positions are expected to be added for July. The Philadelphia Fed Manufacturing Index in the United States was unchanged at -13.5 in July from -13.7 in June and continued to indicate a general decline in Philadelphia's manufacturing activity. Expectations are for a slight improvement to -10 when the results is to be published on Thursday. The latest inflation figures for Japan are due on Thursday. The core consumer price index, which includes fuel prices but excludes fresh food, increased 3.3% from a year earlier in June, while the regular inflation rate also edged up from 3.2% to 3.3%. This was the 15th consecutive month of inflation rates lying above the target rate of the BOJ, posing a challenge to the board's dedication to maintaining an ultra-loose monetary policy. Major earnings reports are to include China National Offshore Oil Corporation and Walmart. After a downwardly revised 0.5% gain in May, retail sales in the UK rebounded in June, growing by 0.7% from the previous month. Increases were noted across the board from food to non-food to online and non-store retailing, making this the third consecutive positive month in retail commerce. The new data is due to be published on Friday. Preliminary estimates are expected to show that the annual inflation rate in the euro area slowed for a third consecutive month to 5.3% in July from 5.5% in June, in line with market forecasts. It will have been the lowest reading since January of 2022. Confirmation of the newest figure is expected to be published on Friday. Major earnings reports include Dairy & Co. and Estée Lauder companies. If you would like to read our full outlook, please visit the analysis section on our website. That's all for this week. Happy trading!